What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another One Piece TCG video. Today we're going to be doing a deck profile for Red Sanji. This is PRB01 Sanji, and this is a custom leader card. It's from kaizokucards.com. I'll leave a link down the website down below if you want to check it out for yourself. I'm not sponsored by them or affiliated with them in any way. I just really like this card and paid for it, with my own money. So I'll leave a link to the website if you want to check out their custom cards. I do have the basic leader on the back here. If anyone asks, if I pull up to locals, people usually don't mind, but I have the basic leader on the back here just in case. And I am using the playmat from Nen Garden as well. I'll leave a link to that in the description also. This is the Whole Cake Island playmat. You're only just seeing a fraction of it here, but it's actually really, really cool. Again, I'm not sponsored by Nen Garden or affiliated with them, but I'll leave a link down to their website if you want to check out the playmat as well. So talking about PRB01 Sanji, he's a 5-life, 5,000 power red leader with an effect, activate main once per turn, up to one of your characters without an on-play effect, and with a cost of 8 or less gains rush during this turn. So this is a very aggressive leader, a very aggro leader that just wants to go wide and essentially just rush down your opponent as fast as you possibly can. I think this leader is okay. I think it's actually decent. I will say Shanks is pretty much the clear-cut top red meta leader at the moment, with Zoro right beneath him in my opinion. But I think this leader is still pretty good. I think it's really aggressive to the point where it can catch some people off guard, and you just might be able to surprise some people with just how fast this leader really is. And what I will say is that this leader just absolutely destroys Blackbeard, right? Because Blackbeard, well, first off, Blackbeard is not very good against aggro decks that go wide, right? Which is exactly what this deck wants to do. But also Blackbeard turns off on play effects, and for this deck we don't really matter. I don't have a lot of on play ability cards in this deck anyways, because we want to get value from the leader effect. So this deck absolutely just destroys Blackbeard. If you have a bunch of Blackbeard players at your locals, try this deck out and let me know how it goes. So hopping into the deck list, I went for kind of like a Straw Hat focus package, but it's not completely Straw Hats. So starting off, we have 4 of the basic Nami searcher here. I mean, this is pretty much a staple in any sort of red Straw Hat build, right? It's just your basic searcher. Look at the top 5 cards for a Straw Hat crew type card, and yeah, that's basically it. Then from there we have 3 of the Rested Dawn Namis. This is the one that has the activate main effect. Give up to 1 Rested Dawn card to your leader or one of your characters. This card is still pretty good, right? We do have some cards in our deck here that synergize with this. So to take advantage of our leader effect, we are running more cards that have effects such as like activate main or when attacking, and some of those effects require Dawn to be attached. So this is where the Nami card comes in. Really helpful. I have 3 copies here. I felt like 3 was the right amount. I felt like 4 was too much. Usually just want to have like 1 or maybe 2 of these on the board, right? Like you don't need 3 or 4 of these on the board. So I felt like 3 was just the perfect amount. 4, I was seeing it too much. 2, wasn't seeing this card enough. 3, to me, just felt just right. And then we have 2 copies of this Nico Robin from OP10. She's a 1-cost character, 2,000 power with 1,000 counter on play. So this is one of the few cards in our deck that does have an on play ability. KO up to one of your opponent's characters with 1,000 power or less. What I've been noticing in the meta is that a lot of people are playing more chump blockers lately. And what I mean by chump blockers, if you're not aware, is just blockers that are just really cheap, right? That don't have a lot of power to them. They're like 1-cost 1,000 power blockers. So like, for example, I've noticed people playing the 1-cost 1,000 power blocker Law a lot in blue decks lately. So that'll just clear that very easily. So just a good card to have, right, to get rid of those cheap blockers. Next up, we got 4 copies of this Sanji. This is from OP01. This card was really made for this deck, right? It's a 2-cost card, 3,000 power with 2,000 counter to it. Activate main once per turn. You may add one card from the top of your life cards to your hand. This character gains plus 2,000 power during this turn. Then give this character up to 2 Arrested Dawn cards. So since it doesn't have an on-play effect, we can give this rush with our leader. And essentially, this just becomes a 2-cost 7,000 power rusher, which also gives us a card from life, which can be really helpful if your opponent is trying to starve you. They just might not attack into your life because they don't want to give you any cards. You can use this guy to take a card from your life, and then he becomes a 7,000 power rusher as well, which is very valuable. And he has a 2k counter on him as well, so this card is just absolutely amazing in this deck. Next, we have 3 copies of the ST21 Sanji. This is a 2-cost, 3,000 power, 2,000 counter. It has an on-play effect. Select up to one of your Straw Hat Crew type characters with 6,000 power or more. If the selected character attacks during this turn, your opponent cannot activate blocker. So this serves 2 different purposes, right? 1, it's a 2k counter, and 2, it's sort of like a Diable Jambe as well. I will tell you, I'm not running Diable Jambe in this deck, but I think you can if you wanted to, as like a 1 or 2 of, you can maybe swap out one of these guys, put in Diable Jambe if you want, but then you have a little bit less counter. But this is just a really good card, right? Straw Hat Crew searchable, 2k counter, and then can give one of your Straw Hat characters unblockable. So just really good card all around. Next up, we have 4 copies of the OP10 Sanji. We have the alt art and then the basic art right here. This card is pretty much a staple in any red deck now, but I feel like this deck even more so was made for Sanji because it doesn't have an on-play effect, so you can give it rush, right? So it's a 3-cost card with 3,000 power, 1,000 counter. Your turn, this character gains 3,000 power, so it's essentially a 6k attacker on your turn, and on KO, draw 1 card. So this card doesn't have an on-play effect, right? It just has your turn and on KO. So this is essentially a 6k rusher on your turn, and then when it gets KO'd, it draws you a card. This card is just absolutely amazing in this deck. Definitely a 4 of. I know this card has been getting pretty expensive lately because just every red deck is running this card, but if you can get 4 copies of this card, definitely recommend throwing in 4 copies in this deck. So next up, we have 4 copies of the ST01 Zoro. So I'm essentially running this in place of the basic 3-cost rush Zoro. And this guy is basically just a better version of that in this deck because we can give him rush with our leader effect, right? And then he has Dawn times 1. This character gains plus 1,000 power. And note that this actually works on your opponent's turn as well. So if you give him 1 Dawn on your turn, he'll be a 7,000 power attacker. And then on your opponent's turn, he'll be a 6,000 power body, which is really nice. And then you give him rush with the leader effect, right? So just an all-around great card. And then of course we have the rested Dawn Nami to give him that Dawn to activate his effect. So really good card with this leader. And then we have 3 copies of the Tony Chopper from OP10. This is just another really good red staple card, right? 4 cost, 4,000 power, 2k counter with blocker, and then on your opponent's turn, he has 6,000 power. So just all around good card, Straw Hat Crew searchable, 2k counter, and a blocker as well. Can't really go wrong with this card. Now, next up, this one might be a bit interesting, but let me explain. So we have 3 copies of this vanilla Luffy's 4 cost, 6,000 power, 1k counter Monkey D Luffy with a film Supernova Straw Hat Crew type, and it is a promo card. So this card isn't as common as some of the other vanillas you might see around. This card is actually going for like $3 or $4 on TCG Player as of right now. But I like this card for a couple different reasons, right? So the first reason I like this card is, well, it's a vanilla card, so it works with our leader, right? We can give him rush with our leader effect, which is nice. And another thing I like is that it has 6,000 power. 6,000 power is actually really good against Shanks, right? Because Shanks is very prominent in the meta, and he is going to give minus 1000 to one of your characters or your leader when you attack. So if you attack for 6k and he minuses by 1k, that's 5k. He's still gonna need to counter out with a card, right? So that's why I like the 6000 power stat line as opposed to like a 5000 power vanilla character. And the other reason I like this card specifically, instead of other vanilla characters, like let's say here I have a couple ones here, right? So like this Tony Chopper from ST21, it's essentially the same thing, right? It's a Straw Hat Crew type character, 4 cost, 6000 power. And then we also have this Frankie card, right, from ST01. Essentially the same thing. 4 cost, 6000 power, 1k counter, Straw Hat Crew. So what is the difference between all of these cards? Well, there's just a couple niche situations where Luffy is the better card, right? Because there are some cards in this game, such as Boa Hancock, which says that you can freeze one of your opponent's characters, except for Monkey D. Luffy. So in those very niche scenarios, Luffy is actually better than, say, a Frankie or a Chopper with the same stat line, right? And there's also the 7 cost Rush Yellow Enel, which has an effect that if he were to be KO'd, you can just trash a card instead, right? But if you have a Monkey D. Luffy on the field, that effect is negated. So that is the reason why I have this promo Luffy instead of the Chopper or the Frankie, which are all essentially the same card, except for those very niche scenarios, right? If you want to pick up the Luffy on TCG Player, you can. Like I said, it's like $3 or $4, so I mean, it's not that expensive, but if you don't want to spend that much on a card just for those very niche scenarios, I totally understand. You're totally fine just running a Frankie or a Chopper instead, but that's the reason why I am running Luffy instead of the other characters. Next up, we have 4 copies of this Zoro from ST21. This card is just amazingly good. 4 cost, 5000 power, 1k counter. Dawn times 2, this character gains rush. So this effect actually synergizes really well with the ST21 Luffy leader. I already made a video on that leader. If you want to check that out, I'll leave a link to that video in the description down below. But even so, we're not always getting off his Dawn times 2 effect, but it doesn't even matter, right? Because he doesn't have an on-play ability, so we can just give him rush with our leader anyways, which is really nice. And then on KO, play up to 1 character card with 6000 power or less other than Roronoa Zoro from your hand. And now we'll go into some of the other characters that we can play off of this effect, right? What I will say, one downside to this card though is the on KO effect. It can be avoided by cards such as like Ben Beckman, which just trashes the character instead of KO. Or if you're going up against a blue deck, they have like the Bouncer Law, which can just bounce this back to hand, or they can bottom deck it with a Grav Blade, right? So the on KO is really good, but some colors in this game are able to just get around it, unfortunately. Next up, we got 4 copies of this ST21 Rush Luffy. This card is just an all-around amazing card in pretty much any red deck, right? 5 cost, 6000 power, which means we can play this off the Zoro we just mentioned if that gets KO'd. It has rush built in, so we don't need to give it rush with our leader effect. We can play this and then play something else like another cheaper unit, like the 2 cost Sanji, right? Give that rush, and then we have a 6k rusher, and then a 7k rusher with the 2 cost Sanji, right? And then it has a when attacking effect. Give up to 1 rested Dawn card to your leader or one of your characters. So this is really nice. Just giving a rested Dawn to a leader or another character is really good. You can give it to himself, which is nice as well, making him a 7k attacker, or you can give it to one of our other characters that needs a Dawn for its effect, right? Such as the Zoro that we mentioned earlier. Give him the rested Dawn, and then he gets his plus 1000 ability, which is really cool. So just an all-around really good card. Now here's where things get a little bit spicy. We got 3 copies of this Pell card card from OP04. I've never played this card in my life. I've never seen anyone play this card in my life until I started playing Red Sanji. This card actually fits really well with this leader. So 5 cost character, 6,000 power. Again, that 6,000 power threshold. It can be played on the KO from Zoro, right? This doesn't specify if like a Straw Hat Crew type character. It can be any red character with 6,000 power or less, as long as it's not another Zoro card, right? So you can play the Pell off the KO. And what this card does, it has a Dawn ×1 when attacking, KO up to one of your opponent's characters with 4,000 power or less. So this is really nice because we can give him Rush with our leader effect, right? And then we can give him Arrested Dawn with either the Monkey D. Luffy that we just looked at, or we can give him a Arrested Dawn with this Nami as well. And then he can KO a 4K power or less card. So he can KO some of those chump blockers, or he can even combo with the next card that I'm about to show here real quick. Oh, and I'm only running 3 copies of this card just because he has no counter. So I don't want this deck to be bricked up too much, so that's why I'm just running 3 copies instead of 4. Now here we have, unironically, the best card in the deck is Wapol from OP08. So why is this guy the best card in the deck? So let's talk about it. He's a 6 cost character with 6,000 power. Again, 6,000 power fits that Zoro threshold. You can play Wapol off the Zoro KO. He has a 1K counter, Dawn ×1. Again, we can give him that Dawn with the Luffy or the Nami. When attacking, give up to one of your opponent's characters minus 2,000 power during this turn. Then this character gains plus 2,000 power until the end of your opponent's next turn. So this card is just absolutely insane. This card does everything we want in this deck. It has 6k power, so we can play it off the Zoro. It has a Dawn ×1 effect, so we can synergize that with either the Luffy or either the Nami, right? And then it doesn't have an on-play effect, so we can give it Rush with our leader, right? And then it's giving minus 2,000 power to an opponent's character for the turn, so you can just minus 2k something and then start swinging into it to get rid of it, right? Such as like a 8 cost Eustace Captain Kidd, which can be really annoying to deal with. And then he gains plus 2,000 power until the end of your opponent's next turn. So that means he's going to be an 8,000 power attacker on your opponent's next turn. So he's very, very hard to get rid of. They're going to have to commit a lot of resources to get rid of this guy, unless they're playing maybe like Grav Blade. That can be kind of annoying, right? Since he has a 6 cost, he can be bottom decked by a Grav Blade. I think blue in general is kind of a tough matchup for our deck here, but still, this guy is just insanely good, right? And then on your turn, he's actually 9,000 power, a 9,000 power rusher, right? Because he has 6,000 power, you give him 1 Dawn, he goes up to 7, and then he gets plus 2k, giving him 9,000 power total on your turn. So a 9,000 power rusher that subtracts 2,000 power from one of your opponent's characters, and then he becomes an 8k power character on your opponent's turn. This card is just absolutely insane. This is just unironically the best card in the deck. You definitely need 4 copies of this card to get the maximum potential out of your Sanji leader, in my opinion. And that's it for the characters. You'll notice we're not running any really like high-end characters, right? Like we're not running Dragon, we're not running Goldie Roger. I think you could run one of Goldie Roger if you wanted to, or maybe 1 or 2 dragons, but I just really like having Wapol as the most expensive character here, because my goal with this deck is just to play sort of like cheap to mid-range characters and go as wide as possible, right? Just have like 3 or 4 bodies on the board just to get a bunch of swings in at our opponent, and I think that's how we want to win with this deck. So moving on to the events, we don't have a lot of events, nothing too special here. 2 copies of Bad Manners Kick Course, just a 0 cost event that can trash a card, can give us 3k counter, and then it has a good trigger as well, Straw Hat Crew searchable. And then we're running 3 copies of the Gum Gum Mole Pistol from ST21. This card is just really good all around, right? It can subtract 5,000 power from one of your opponent's characters, and then if you have a character with 6k or more, k up to one of your opponent's characters with 2000 power or less. So again, Straw Hat Crew searchable. It can synergize with the Pell, it can synergize with the Wapol, and maybe even the Robin as well, which is really nice. So yeah, just an all-around good event card. And that is it. That is the deck list. Let me know what you think. I will leave a link down to the deck list down in the description down below if you want to check it out for yourself. Try this deck out. Let me know what you think. One thing I did forget to mention is that I did take this to one of my locals, and I did get 4th place going 2-1. I beat a red-blue Marco, and then I lost to a blue Doflamingo, and then I beat a Reiju for 4th place going 2-1 at my locals. I think maybe this deck could be improved a little bit, but I like where it's at right now. Let me know if you have any suggestions on, you know, how to change the deck. Again, I think blue in general is just a tough matchup for us because he just kept bouncing stuff back to hand with the Doflamingo, right? That's why I lost that matchup. Like the 4-cost Zoro, this guy is just not as good in the blue matchup because they're either gonna bounce this to hand or they're gonna bottom deck it. So you just don't get the on KO effect, which really sucks. And then again, the Wapol, again, he's really good, right? But he can just get bounced back to hand. Like by Jozu or bottom deck by a Grav Blade. So yeah, blue is kind of a tough matchup, but again, if you're going up against a bunch of like Blackbeards in your locals, definitely try this deck out. I think this deck just absolutely steamrolls Blackbeard. And then with the Shanks matchup, I think Shanks in general is pretty tough. I think if you can beat them before they get to their 10 Dawn turn and drop the giant 10 cost Shanks, I think you can try and beat them that way. But if they get to their 10 Dawn turn, they drop that Shanks, you're probably going to lose, to be honest. So you just want to try and be as aggressive as possible in that matchup. So again, anyways, that's the deck list. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you're going to try this out, you know, take it to your locals. Let me know how you do. I'd love to hear some of your tournament results. I know some people said they had good results with the ST21 Luffy deck that I shared, so that really makes me happy. It's really cool to see. And yeah, thanks for watching. See you all in the next one. Appreciate you. Later.